The keynote event of this afternoon, the final event of our afternoon, is for you to get to hear one of the premier basketball coaches in the United States of America and a close personal friend to Garth Pleasant. Don Meyer began his career at Hamline University, and I got to know him during the time that Myra and I lived in Nashville. And Don was coaching at Lipscomb University. Don and his wife, Carmen. Carmen, would you stand and let us greet you? Don and Carmen attended church with us, and I was Don's backup teacher to a college class. And it was always a poor day when Don wasn't there because, again, of the way Don treats young people and what they sensed about his genuine concern for them. Don has most recently coached for Northern State University in Aberdeen, South Dakota, and has retired from coaching at the end of this past season, having achieved an incredible 923 career wins in 38 seasons of coaching basketball. That deserves honor. The immediate event that precipitated Don's retirement was a grinding automobile crash that, while almost taking his life, may have saved his life. It was that accident and the aftermath of that did cause Don to lose a leg by amputation. But in the treatment that he received under emergency care, it was discovered to have an incredibly advanced cancer. Don has since that time battled back not only to become ambulatory, as you'll see in a moment, to be functional, but continues to battle the cancer. Don is much more aggressive than the most aggressive cancer. He is the men's basketball coach with the greatest number of wins in all of NCAA history and has, in the year 2009, been presented the Jimmy Valvano Award for perseverance because of the way he's handled not only a long and stellar career, but the crisis of the accident and the battling back against cancer. We are honored to have as our keynote presenter for this day Garth's close personal friend, Coach Don Meyer. Coach, we look forward to hearing from you.
There's a few things I got to get straight right now. First of all, I claim no responsibility for any development whatsoever of Garth Pleasant. Knowing how much time he spends with Roger Knapp, I think we can point the finger there for anything that's happened bad from Garth. The other thing is, I don't ever want to spank his bare bottom. You'd have to bring your lunch and take a break and come back for the second half. It's almost disgusting and makes you want to retch and vomit thinking about it, doesn't it? The other thing is, when I grow up, I want to be just like Garth, because I think he's epitomized what Jesus Christ is like. And I'm going to go into that a little bit, but I want to first say I'm honored to be here to do anything with Rochester College, because I think it's a great school. The kids that Garth would bring down, we'd play. They played hard. They were unbelievable, and they all played clean except for Johnny. That kid's, there's something wrong with that kid. I don't know what I'm going to do. You got to have one that's screwed up in the family, I guess. And heck, we've got 3 grandchildren out of 8 that are mental cases, so I don't know what you're going to do. But there's just some teams, you know, when you're playing them, you're playing a great program. And that's the way it was. And you sense it when you're around the kids. And I think that's what you would say about a school. You can sense it when you're around the people on the campus. You know. And the first person that somebody meets on a college campus is going to be their picture of what the college is when they walk on that campus. So if it's the guy weed eating and he splatters rocks on their car, whatever he does after that is going to be what the school would do. So it's so important. And Garth's got an even greater responsibility because of his, being sort of a front porch of the college and being somebody that's really visible to people on the outside, off campus. Now, I get a few phone calls still. I'm not coaching, but I'll get phone calls. I'll get a call, and it'll be Pleasant, Garth A. Until about 9 months ago, I'd get a call, Wooden, John R. And I want to try to show the similarities between these two guys because they are so much alike to me when I think about them. Their early careers weren't always easy. I don't know which one told me this story, but they got a job, and I'm sure it's probably Garth. And he goes to his desk that the coach left that was before him, and he opens up the drawer, and middle desk drawer, and there's 3 envelopes. One says, open this after the first year, open this after the second year, open this after the third year. So the first year wasn't too good, and he opens up the envelope, and it says, blame the former coach. And that worked. Second year was worse yet. He opened up the envelope. It says, blame the players. He did that. Third year, it wasn't a great year. He opens up the envelope. It says, prepare 3 envelopes. So it wasn't always rolling here. You know what I mean? It took a while to get a philosophy across and to get kids. But the 3 things I want to compare about Coach Wooden and Garth is servant leadership, humility, and a childlike spirit. Now, I'm going to try to save on time, so I'm not going to read from my show Bible. It's a Bible that you buy it, it's cracked, and it has underlined verses and dog-eared pages, so you don't have to do that. And people think you really... And it's big, too. People aren't going to miss it when they see it. So I sell these, by the way. There'll be a table out back when we finish. In John 13, talks about Jesus very close to his death, and he takes his clothes off, basically, puts on a towel, gets on his knees, and starts washing the feet of the disciples. And they didn't wear wingtips in those days. They didn't have concrete streets. They had a lot of things there, dead and dying animals and people and children, and he washed their feet. Then later on in John 13, he talks about why he did that. And it was to show them something that's extremely important. And that's that your example is not the main thing in influencing young people. It's the only thing. Because everything we say doesn't mean a thing when it's compared to what we do. And that's the thing we all need to think about. Now, some of us can use that example maybe in a bigger crowd or get some notoriety some way, and some of us maybe can't do anything. We've got a preacher in Aberdeen. He's 89 years old, and he's South Dakota Hall of Fame. He just gave up preaching full time. He also has a small TV show with about 20 million people, and it's overseas, it's everywhere. And when I was in the hospital for 2 months, people would come up to me and say, you know Harold Salem? You know Harold Salem? Because everybody was watching his show on Sunday. And now all he does is do that show. He doesn't have a congregation to do it with, but he's in his office and he'll get a letter and he'll sit there and he'll look at it, read it, then he'll set it by his manual typewriter and he types the letter to every person. He doesn't leave the office till he's handled all the letters for that day. And the thing that is so powerful about somebody like that is that he believes so much in his ministry and what he's doing. We've all got different ministries. Maybe some of you, one of your ministries can be to help the school. Maybe you can't get out, sort of like me. I can't, I'm not as athletic as Rubel, and it hurts to say that, but I thought I've seen pigs go up the stairs a lot better than that. But, you know, the thing I always remember about Garth and think about Garth is if we were in a battle and we were in a foxhole, I'd want him behind me because I know that he would deflect a lot of bullets as big as he is, and he would never, ever not be there for me. And if a grenade came in, he'd fall on it because he spent his whole life falling on hand grenades. He's been bandaging the school. He's been trying to hold things together in his own way, as many of you have. But whatever your station in life, there's something you can do where your example can be the only thing. And you can make things better, as Garth has done. You know, it's not just his students that love him, it's the parents of those students, because he never charges for any of the weddings that he does. And that's, I guess, weddings aren't expensive up here in Michigan, but they are in South Dakota. And if you can get a preacher to do a free wedding, that's a pretty good deal. Parents appreciate that. But I think Garth does it, and he doesn't do it unless they'll meet with him many times before he performs the ceremony. Because, see, he's a coach. He knows that preparation's a whole lot more important than the game itself. And that takes time. That takes time. And time's the most valuable thing we all have. And to give that, he gives it all the time. He doesn't even think about it. It's been said you can judge a man by how he treats those who can't do anything to him or for him. And Garth certainly passed that test. Now, he would rather talk to the janitor in the gym than go to some big shot. He's not a respecter of persons and titles. He can love anybody. And that's a hard thing for a lot of us to do because we've all got our preconceived ideas of what's good and what's bad. But God thinks everything's good. And we are to love everybody like God loves them. You know, everybody we meet is fighting a tough battle. Some of us, you can see the battles. You can just see it right away. It's right in their face. And then some of them you can't. But God has Garth here so he can work through Garth to help people. And God's here to work through all of us. You know, Oswald Chambers is a great writer. He wrote My Utmost for His Highest Journal. And a few weeks ago he had a thing in there about, you know, God doesn't want a perfectly rounded grape. He wants a grape that's squashed out. So all the love, joy, and peace of the Holy Spirit can come out through us to others. Because I really believe it's not us that's making those decisions. It's the Holy Spirit within us. I really believe that. Because our human tendencies wouldn't allow us to love somebody that was unlovable. But having the Holy Spirit in us and working through us changes the way we see things. Just like kids that have played for him, they've changed the way they see things through him. It's going to be hard for me to do this because when I think about his teams, I think about our teams at Lipscomb. And it's just hard because he's going to want to keep doing this, and he just can't do it anymore. And that's going to be tough for him. Now, humility. There's a great verse, James 3:13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by the deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. Now, I've met a lot of coaches. They think they're really smart, but they're not humble, so we know they're not wise. The greatest coach I've ever met is the guy we're comparing Garth to. He got an award for President Bush, the highest award a civilian can get. It was on his coat hanger the last time I checked. Because it wasn't about awards for Coach Wooden, and it's not for Garth either. It's about the kids. That's why you coach. That's why you coach. You coach for the love of the game, but you coach because you love the kids. And that's what's going to be the toughest for him. is he's not going to have kids to work with like that. You know, in Proverbs, it talks about so many things. If you could read a chapter a month, you could get it done in a month, unless it's not leap year. And when you go through it, it always says that humility precedes honor. Humility precedes honor. Today, I think a lot of people have got that screwed up. You know, they come in thinking they're supposed to be honored. You got to work your way up, and you've got to learn what humility is all about. Because, see, our job is to humble ourselves, and it's God's job to exalt us. And if we screw up and try to do God's job, he'll do ours. And then we will be humbled. And that's why pride always goes before a fall. The only time I've ever seen Garth not be humble is when he's talking about his family, or his family, the team. I mean, he loves his kids. I mean, he absolutely loves his kids. And they're all different. Some would say very different. Of course, Johnny is the most different. He's going to go into mixed martial arts if he gets even a chance of signing a contract. He's so proud of his kids. He's so proud of his players. I mean, to be able to have two people stand up and they're devoting their lives to what they're devoting it to, how could you not be proud of that? You know, there was a coach one time that coached football at Vanderbilt, and he was a really good coach and successful. Well, Bill Parcells was a coach at Vanderbilt. He was an assistant. Head coaches usually aren't too successful at Vanderbilt. And then there was another coach that people thought was really good. In fact, they had the saying, they knew he was great long before they called him Bear. And this Bear guy, he got a job in Alabama, a little town named Tuscaloosa, where they've had all the terrible tornadoes now. And it was his first year there, and he went down to South Alabama to recruit a player, and he didn't get the player. So he's hungry, he's tired, he stops in this cafe, and when he walks in, every head turns and looks at him because everybody in that cafe was black. He walked up to the counter, and a big old guy comes up and says, "What do you want? You don't belong here." He says, "Well, I want to eat." He says, "Well, you're not going to like what we have. Black-eyed peas, chitlins, collard greens." He says, "Well, I'm just a small-town boy from Arkansas, and I've eaten miles of those, so give me a plate." So he gets a plate, he eats it, gets up to pay, and the guy says, "You don't have to pay." He says, "No, for a meal this good, I should pay." And then Bear said, "I left a tip, not too big to be flashy, but not too small to be cheap." And I'm walking out the door, and the guy says, hey, you're the new coach up in Alabama, aren't you?" He said, "Yes, sir, I am. My name's Paul Bryant." He said, "Well, could you send me a picture?" Bear said then, there weren't any pictures of me yet because nobody wanted a picture of me yet, so they hadn't made any. And I wrote his name and address down on a napkin and took it back with me and made sure to send him something. 22 years later, Bear Bryant's somewhat successful coaching at Alabama now. And he loses a recruit to Auburn, a really good lineman. Now, Auburn is a school in the same league as Alabama, and they have a friendly scrimmage every fall. Sort of like when Michigan plays that school in that state on the other side there. It's a battle. So he wasn't happy. 2 days later, he gets a call from this kid, and the kid says, "Coach, if I was to tell you I wanted to come, would you still take me at Alabama?" And Bear said, "I sure would, but I'm curious, why'd you change your mind?" He said, "Well, my grandpa, he told me if I didn't play for you, I'd never learn as much about life and football as I could. And he also said he'd never speak to me the rest of my life." You see, you ate in his cafe 22 years ago, and you sent him a picture, and that picture is his pride and joy. And every time somebody walks in the restaurant, it don't matter if he's been there 1 time or 100 times, he immediately points to the picture and says, "See that picture? That's the great Paul Bear Bryant, the greatest football coach that ever walked on a football field, and I fed him his first meal in the state of Alabama." He says, "My grandpa lies a lot, but he really loves you." And then Bear Bryant said something that we need to remember when we think about Garth Pleasant and everybody who had an influence on his life, just like Rochester College is influencing kids. He said, then I learned what my mama taught me was right. It don't cost nothing to be nice. And it don't cost nothing to do the right thing. But it costs you everything when you lose your good name by not keeping your word. Now, Bear wasn't the greatest with the English language. But boy, I bet you that's what his mama told him, and that's just how she said it. So in terms of being humble and helping people, there's nobody like Garth, not that I've met. And then the last thing, a childlike spirit. You know, Garth's got a great sense of humor. God's got a great sense of humor, or he wouldn't have created all of us, you know, because we're pretty funny sometimes what we do. But there's also a new DVD I'm going to be selling out in the hallway of Garth snoring. And we spent a half hour after one clinic when you're just watching him hop around like a trout on the couch, and there's all kinds of stuff. It's finest entertainment I've ever enjoyed in my life. As Garth said about the Colin Powell speech, I'd pay the same amount to hear the same speech. I'd pay the same amount to watch you snore today, Garth, if it'd be possible. So he's great on being funny and stuff. We did a clinic at Oakland University one time. We're trying to teach the coaches about reversing the basketball and then going inside to the postman. So we didn't have any demonstrators, so we put coaches out there. So we got Coach Roller over here passing, which usually never happened. But he had one left in him. He passed it to me, and I threw it to another guy. He threw it to Garth, who's supposed to throw it into the post. Garth just unleashes a shot. It zips, doesn't hit any iron, and he runs down the floor like this. Just, I guess you had to be there to enjoy it, but unbelievable. But he hasn't lost that sense of humor, because this year, I don't know who they were playing, but it was a so-called home game. You know, they've never had a home game in all those wins, but it was at one of their home gyms, one of the 15 they probably have here in town. And that game's over, and he goes to check the referee's locker room, make sure it's cleaned up, you know, because they're using somebody else's facilities. And he finds a watch there. Or a phone, I'm sorry, and he looks at it and opens it up, and he said, oh, I got to get this out. So he runs out in the parking lot, and the officials haven't left yet, and he goes, yo, yo, and they thinking he's coming to take a bat and knock in their windows because they've worked such a bad game and everything. But he comes up and says, hey, this is yours, isn't it? The guy looks at it and says, yeah, it is. He said, how'd you know, Garth? He said, well, I just opened it up and said 19 missed calls. But having a sense of humor can sometimes backfire on you. And once again, this features someone that's been mentioned before. They're playing a game when John was playing. And this guy on the other team, number 22, he gets 3 wide open threes and makes them. So Garth, he's going to show internal leadership. And he brings the guys over and he says, listen, you guys, the guy made 3 threes in a row. You get that straightened out. He sends them out of the huddle right away. And the guy makes 4 threes in a row. He brings them over, he sets them down, he says, now listen, we've got to guard that guy. And John holds his hand up right away and says, heck, Dad, I'll take him. I'm not guarding anybody. But I want to close with something that was really special to me when I got it. And it's a letter that Clint Pleasant sent to me, and it's entitled Rochester College Basketball Family. I assume most of you have heard that my dad stepped away from coaching after our last game this season. It was a season on honoring him as game after game attention was called to his incredible accomplishments. We all know what a remarkable career he had, and this program literally stands on his shoulders. He started taking me to games when I was just a toddler. I've traveled countless miles with him, spent countless nights in hotel rooms with him, and have sat next to him on the bench for literally hundreds of games. His friends are such an important part of the program, and he would not have been able to do it without your support. And so many of you have become special friends of mine as well. I'm honored to have been asked to take over the program as the next head coach. I've coached at several schools, but I can't ever remember being this excited about coaching and leading a team. The Rochester College basketball program is very special to me and my family, and I do not take this opportunity lightly. I plan to run the program in the exact same way in which it was built: character and work ethic. We will continue to be the hardest playing team around, and most importantly, we will continue to be a program that understands the larger perspective: faith, family, and the importance of good decisions. This is in all black and underlined. I covet your support. Many of you are just as special to me as you are to my dad. In so many ways, you've been the backbone of this program, and I will simply manage and lead a program that you helped already establish. Every one of you will continue to be welcome at our practices and games. In fact, I'll be hurt if you don't show up. Now, this is what got me. I cannot be my dad. I cannot fill one heel of his shoes. But I will work to be the best I can be, and hopefully the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. That's one of the greatest letters I've ever read, and what a great tribute to a father. And I sure hope his father gets that letter, because that's going to be the most meaningful letter he probably ever got in his life. Now I want to finish by talking about the three gifts we all have, or the three things about our gifts that we've been given by the Lord. I mean, the number one thing in your life is to find out what's your unique talent or gift. What do you have that is something that is special to you, unique to you, and you enjoy doing? You get satisfaction from doing it. Because I always tell college kids, don't do what your parents want you to do. Do what you want to do in terms of profession. Because you're going to be miserable the rest of your life no matter how much money you make if you aren't doing what you really want to do. Then once you determine what that gift is, develop it to the fullest. Because people don't pay for average. People want the best. So you got to develop your gift so you're really great at it. And then number three, you got to give your gift away every day. You know, it's Christmas, you buy all these gifts, you put them in a closet. People say, hey, how'd everybody like their gifts? Oh, no, I put them in a closet. I get a buzz out of buying gifts and putting them in the closet. We've got 8 grandkids, and I like about 5.25 of the 8. But we still buy gifts for all of them because we enjoy watching them tear up the house, and then the parents have to clean up like we had to after them. We get a little enjoyment out of it. Give your gift away every day. Don't let a day go by that you don't give your gift. Because if you do, you'll never get that day back. There's a great preacher who died in the year 2005, a Baptist preacher in Memphis, Tennessee, named Adrian Jones. He's one of the greatest speakers I've ever heard. They have him on at 7:30 in Aberdeen. I don't know how he do it because he's been dead for a long time, but he has a regular series that just goes on. And he must have a hookup down there somehow. Or maybe up there. I don't know how it all works, but he's great. And Adrian Jones would say, every morning I wake up and I say, thank you for dying for me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for living in me. And no one has had the Lord live in him more than my friend Garth. I want to finish with something that Coach Wooden, I got several years ago, listened to a tape where he was speaking. You've got a bunch of stuff on those envelopes. There's a version of this. I like mine better because it's shorter than Coach's is. This crowd on earth, they soon forget. This is called God's Hall of Fame. This crowd on earth, they soon forget the heroes of the past. They cheer like mad until you fall, and that's how long you'll last. I tell you, friend, I would not trade my name, however small, if written there beyond the stars in that celestial hall, for any famous name on earth or glory that they share. I'd rather be an unknown here and have my name up there. And I know one thing for sure. Gar's been in a lot of halls of fame down here, but he's a lock to be in the one that counts forever. And I'm grateful for having the chance to know him And like I said, when I grow up, I want to be just like Garth. Thank you.